Have you ever struggled writing characters that leap off the page or feel real? Or do you wonder how you can describe them without giving too much detail to your reader and overwhelming them with exposition? You should stick around because I've got 10 tips that are going to help your characters feel real and leap off the page and hook your reader. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Rachel. I'm a writing coach, and I help writers all over the world overcome writer's block, find their voice, and tell their stories. And today we're talking all about characters. My students have been asking me all week to talk about how to write characters so that readers actually like them and want to keep reading about them. So today I've got 10 tips for you to conquer this tactic. Okay, so the first 5 tips are going to be how to write characters that your readers feel like they can actually see. So these are physical descriptions that are going to help your characters leap off the page. So tip 1, use suggestive details. So something I tell my students all the time is to find one very specific detail that your reader can picture extremely easily. Something that I was taught is, when you're talking about a character, if you say she had brown eyes and blue hair, that's not super descriptive. But if she had brown eyes and blue hair and a mole just over her upper lip, that is something that your readers are going to be able to picture right away. Tip number 2 is describing them through action. So instead of saying he was an angry person, tell your reader what an angry person does and describe them that way. You could also think about other emotions or psychological qualities they might have, and think about similar actions that you've experienced in your own life to describe that character through those actions. This falls into that show don't tell category, and I know a lot of writers struggle with it, but it doesn't have to be difficult. If you think about what a camera sees when they look at the character, you can describe them that way. Tip number 3, filter the character through another character's point of view. So think about the first impressions that your new character is going to have with a character who sees them and interprets them. This is also a great way to think about biases and the cultures that you build in your story. What are assumptions that your characters are going to make when they meet the character you're trying to describe? This can be a really fun way to introduce world building as well. And I find it really useful when I'm trying to think of, okay, what's the most important thing that I need my readers to know about my characters? And this is what I'll have my other characters notice and describe about them in the story. Tip number 4, integrate the setting. So how does the geographical setting of your story affect the physical appearances of your character? This is a really important thing to remember when you're writing, especially when you're working in geographical settings that are very harsh, severe, or distinct. For example, if you're going to be writing a character in a story that's, like Tatooine, where it's like super hot and dry, they're not going to have super soft and subtle skin. They're going to have sun damage, probably. They're going to be tan. Older characters might have leathery skin. Think about the different geographical factors of some place that affect how a person is going to look over a long period of time. And tip number 5, they don't need to know everything. Think about just a few key details that make the characters stand out above all of the rest. Think about what makes them specifically different and memorable to the characters in your story and focus on that. And when you allow your reader to sort of fill in the details on their own, they naturally craft a character that they find appealing in their own mind, and that helps them like them a little bit more. Okay, that's the first 5 on how to help your readers see your character. Let's talk about how we can make them relatable so that your reader likes them. Tip number 6, give them relatable goals and fears. So we read stories because characters have goals that we can relate to. We want to see the character succeed. When a character has a goal that's unrelatable or unclear, the reader is sort of like, why the heck am I here? Why am I cheering for this character? So give them a goal that makes sense and that is relatable and is also super specific to the setting and the story you're trying to tell. In addition to that, make sure that they have fears. Give them things that stop them. Give them obstacles so that they don't immediately succeed. You need to have a reasonable fear so that your reader, again, cheers for your character and wants them to overcome it. Tip number 7, in that same vein, show their strengths and their flaws. So one of the problems I see with early writers is that they have characters who are too perfect. And they're afraid that if they create a character that's not perfect, then readers won't like them. But here's the thing. I've studied human nature for a long time. People don't like people who seem perfect. It's sort of a weird phenomenon, but they treat characters in the same way. So make sure that your characters do have flaws alongside of their strengths. They don't have to be the worst creature you've ever created, but give them something that makes them seem a little bit more approachable, and it'll humanize them enough that your reader is going to want to cheer for them. Tip number 8, surprise the reader, okay? Set up their character, set up their expectations, and then go a little bit outside of it to make sure that your reader is paying attention. This doesn't have to be super out of character for them, but you can subtly hint at it throughout the manuscript. And then when the reader gets there, they're like, oh my gosh, here's a surprise. And that's something that you can use to really hook the reader back into the story at the midway point and make sure that they're still cheering for the character and they want to read to the end. Tip number 9 relates to dialogue, and dialogue is a great way to relate characters and to reveal them to your readers. So when you write dialogue, think about eavesdropping. How do your characters talk when they think no one is listening? For an example, sometimes I like to write characters and I pretend they're talking about me. What are they going to say about me when I'm not in the room? And I'll be honest with you, it's probably not very nice. So write dialogue that sounds like it's eavesdropping. Also think about dialogue that you hear in your own life. People don't tell the whole story when they're telling stories, especially with somebody that they know really well. A lot of times they start right in the middle of the story without any context, or they don't finish. They don't always talk in complete sentences. This is one of the ways that you can create characters that truly stand out. And then tip number 10 is one of my favorites. Give them a quirk that makes them stand out. So I know this sounds super vague, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. Give them one thing that makes them a little bit weird, a little bit different, and a little bit more memorable. One of my favorite examples of this is Kaz Brekker from Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. And in this story, Kaz can't touch living things. And we go through the whole story being like, what the heck is that about? You read the story because you care about Kaz and you care about the heist, and then you get intrigued and you want to keep reading because you want to know what is on with him. I think this was really clever, and I think about it every time that I assign quirks to my characters. So it doesn't have to be super huge, it doesn't have to be super scary, just something that's out of context and seems a little bit weird until it's fully explained, maybe near the end of the story. Okay, that is 10 tips to help your characters leap off the page and be more relatable to your reader. If this video helped you today and you want to see more like it, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell button so you don't miss a video. I upload every single week. And let me know in the comments below which of these tips you're going to try and which ones did I miss. Also, while you're here, I want to make sure you don't miss out on a super special opportunity. I put together a kit full of 30 guides that I use to help my students write better stories. I've linked it below and I hope you check it out. This is something that writers all over the world are loving, and I know it's going to help you too. Okay, well, that's it for our video today. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me, and I will see you next time. Happy writing.